All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Strictly New York City Sports, the Strictly New York City Sports show, where I talk strictly about New York City sports. It's pretty much in the name. Today, I'm starting off with the New York Giants. They lost last night 9-14 to the Buffalo Bills. Now that they're 1-5, questions are starting to loom around the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, after he won the head coach of the year, he's looking like he's lost out there, freaking out on the sideline in almost every single game. We saw him throw the tablet last week next to just a couple of weeks ago with Daniel Jones on the sideline. It's starting to become a problem out there for the New York Giants, and they need to figure things out quickly because it looks like the playoffs are pretty much donezo for them. They're not making the playoffs. Let's be real. They have to hit the reset button. They have to be sellers at this trade deadline. I'll talk about it. But before, let's go over the game and let's show you guys some of the highlights from that game and a questionable call at the end where, well, I should say a questionable no call. There was a call to pass interference to play before, and it just seems like the refs got tired of it. They were like, nope. But you'll see it in the video.
From the 46, his pass deflected in the air, intercepted by Michael McFadden. Bobby Okereke continues. Back to him. Right back to the secondary. Barkley bouncing to the outside. Saquon Barkley. So the Giants said the Bills ran it at us. We're going to return the favor.
Taron Johnson against Waller. No call.
There you see it right there.
From the 46, his pass deflected.
Aaron Waller. Looks like he got a hold there, but it was a great game for the New York Giants. You see there the interception against Josh Allen. Saquon Barkley, he broke out for a couple of nice runs, especially in the second half. He finished the day with over 90 yards, I believe. A lot of carries from him. And then right here at the end, Darren Waller. Right there, you see it that he's holding his left arm right there, and he goes down, doesn't get it. So, yeah. I mean, there's no other better way to put it other than it was a missed call by the referees right there. Should have been another play for the Giants at the end. Likely would have just handed the ball off to Saquon Barkley, who was having a dominant night for the New York Giants. And speaking of Saquon Barkley, I wrote an article the other day about him on 3 trade destinations for him. But before we talk about those trade destinations, last night, he went off 93 rushing yards for 24 carries. He also had 4 catches out of the backfield, only 5 yards on those catches. But the offense looked a lot better with Tyrod Taylor under center, to be honest. No turnovers from Tyrod Taylor, no interceptions. He did have a fumble, but no interceptions. He got sacked 3 times. So the offensive line looked a lot better with Tyrod Taylor as well. Not saying that, yeah, I am saying it. It looked terrible with Daniel Jones. So there's question marks around Jones. There's question marks around this whole entire team. And I think there's question marks around one guy specifically named Brian Daboll, who is the coach of the year last year. But to be quite honest, what is he this year? What has he done this year? Last year, they snuck into the postseason. They got 9 wins. But ultimately, they fell short against the Philadelphia Eagles. They got pummeled. And then this year, starting off the season 1-5, it's not looking too good, especially with what they did in the offseason. They brought in Okereke. They brought in Darren Waller. They brought in Jalen Hyatt through the draft. Wan'Dale Robinson coming off his ACL injury, who actually looked pretty good. Looked pretty good yesterday for the Giants in his first game back. 8 receptions, 62 yards, no touchdowns, but still, Wan'Dale Robinson showing good signs off his torn ACL. So Giants fans should be excited about him, but ultimately this whole entire offense is struggling. They're struggling. And you could say Tyrod Taylor played well, but he only did 24 of 36, 200 passing yards. Yeah, he played well, but not great. Not great. And Darren Waller, another guy, 5 receptions, 43 yards. Got to get him more involved. You got to get Darius Slayton had 4 catches, 69 yards. Got to get him more involved too. He's a talented receiver. He had over 700 yards just 2 years ago and the year before that. So Slayton is a decent receiver. And then Jalen Hyatt, obviously you had high hopes with him. You saw in the preseason what he could do, and he impressed the coaching staff in the summer in training camp. So you got to get him more involved as well. But ultimately, when Saquon Barkley's on the field, the Giants are a lot better, and it showed last night. 93 rushing yards. But Dayball's team as a whole just stinks. They just stinks. Their defense played pretty good last night, though, so it was unfortunate that they couldn't get the job done. And with Jones, who knows? Maybe they would have gotten blown out. Who knows with the turnovers that he's committed so far on the year. I mean, there's question marks around his play after getting that 4-year deal worth over $100 million. But before we get into Jones, let's talk about Saquon. Should they be sellers? There's a lot of teams that could use Saquon Barkley. The LA Rams, they could use a better rushing attack, even though yesterday Kyron Williams rushed for over 100 yards. It's still been an inconsistent rushing attack over there in LA. So they could use running back. Tampa Bay, they could use a running back. They're 3-2 right now with Baker Mayfield. Who knew where they would come out of losing Tom Brady, but they're doing pretty well. They got a good defense. They got 2 great receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And they got a great offensive line too. And then Baker Mayfield, he's playing pretty well so far. They could just use a rushing attack too. Saquon Barkley would solve that issue for them. So there's teams out there that could definitely use Saquon Barkley. Cincinnati Bengals, another one. Even though they have Joe Mixon, they could use a stronger rushing attack as well. Barkley could solve that issue. There's numerous teams. The Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he's playing very well with the Baltimore Ravens this year. They're looking like one of the best teams in the AFC North, probably the best team in the AFC North. It's going to be tough to win against the Bengals, but if they can get Barkley, that would put them up right up there with the Bengals. So there's definitely a lot of teams out there that could use Barkley. And with 1 year left on his contract, there was rumors of the Giants even wanting to trade him after they franchise tagged him. So if they don't want to commit to him long term and you don't want to lose him for nothing, why not ship him away? Why not? See what you can get for him. I mean, C-Mac got the Panthers, I'm pretty sure, like a 2nd-round pick and a 5th-round pick or something like that. So, you can get a pretty good return for him, especially because he showed yesterday that when he's healthy, and yet last year he had a pretty much healthy year all year long. He had that injury bug late in the season, but he still came back and he, was top 5 in scrimmage yards among all running backs. So he's still that guy. Yesterday he showed it, rushing for 94 yards. He's got that big playability. He's a home run hitting running back. So teams would definitely want him. It's just up to the Giants to see whether or not they would want to move him. And I think they should move him considering they're 1-5 right now. And then next week, the Giants, who do they got next week? They got the Commanders. I don't think they're going to win that game. And then after that, they got the Jets. They're probably not going to win that one. We could do a debate on that in a couple weeks, but they're not going to win against the Jets. I'll tell you that right now. The Raiders, they can probably win that one. Dallas, they're not beaten. Then they got Washington again. They might be able to pull off one of those games against Washington. Maybe they can beat the Patriots. Maybe they can beat the Packers. Maybe they can beat the Saints, but they're not beating the Eagles, and they're not beating the Rams, and you're not beating the Eagles. So the Giants should be sellers at the deadline and acquire draft capital, acquire future players that are on rookie contracts that could help you out in the future. And one of those guys that's going to get you a lot in return is Saquon Barkley. But Daniel Jones hasn't been playing well. And before I get into Brian Daboll and why he should take some blame for him, Daniel Jones has struggled. You see it right there, 4-year, $160 million contract that he was given by Joe Schoen and the New York Giants over the offseason. And he's done nothing but play terrible. He has a neck injury now. It doesn't look too good for him. Doesn't. Not at all. So, the Danny Dime struggles, they need to be solved quickly because the fans are starting to get pissed off. They're starting to get pissed off. But yeah, you can't just put all the blame on Daniel Jones, though, because at the end of the day, Brian Daboll, even without Daniel Jones yesterday, in a game where they could have won, the offense looked terrible. It looked terrible. The Giants offense has really only had one good half of football, and that was against the Arizona Cardinals when Daniel Jones played out of his mind. But other than that, the Giants' offense has been terrible. Terrible. Right now, going into week 7, here's where the Giants rank in offensive stats. Total yards, they're 30th. 30th with 294 yards per game. 31st in passing yards with 166.7 passing yards per game. That's terrible. Terrible. And I know Jones he missed yesterday, but still through 5 games, the $160 million guy, 31st passing attack in all of football. That's terrible. And then 32nd in points. When you're last in points, you're going to be 1-5. It's simple as that. Now, they desperately missed Saquon Barkley, but even with him back, they still could not get the job done. 9 points, and they had it. They had the game. They had opportunities. Even though could have been a no call at the end of the game, they had a lot of opportunities to win. So some of the blame has to go on the coach. I think most of the blame has to go on Daboll, actually. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau is this all-world prospect coming out of the draft, and he hasn't really molded. Let's be real. The young players haven't really blossomed into what Giants fans could hope they are. I mean, Thibodeau has some sacks on the year, but nothing too crazy. It's just all the blame that is going on Daniel Jones and all the blame that's going on Saquon Barkley for missing time. Yes, that's warranted. But you still have to put some blame on Brian Daboll, and it feels like Daboll is just pointing fingers at other guys and not himself. And as a head coach, you have to take some responsibility. And if this season continues to go down the gutter, which it likely will, then he might be on the hot seat. If they have a slow start to next season too, might have to cut bait with him. And yet again, after Joe Judge, Pat Schumer, who else did you have? The guy with the weird look. Why can't I think of his name right now? The guy right after Tom Coughlin. Can't think of his name right now. But the coaching, it's just a bug. They got bad luck. They do great their first year. They suck the second year. And then the third year, they're probably going to do terrible too. They got to hit the hard reset button. I trust Joe Shane. But this offensive line is terrible. Evan Neal, another terrible game yesterday. They do miss Andrew Thomas desperately, but they give up the 31st most rushing yards in the NFL as well on the defensive side. They give up the 28th most points in the NFL. So you give up the 28th most points and you score the least amount of points in the NFL, then you're going to suck. And that's what the Giants are. They're a terrible football team right now. But let's not spend too much time with the Giants. We'll flip it over to the Jets. The New York Jets, they upset the Philadelphia. Oh, we got a comment. What's up? Thanks for the Mets videos. Love you. Oh, thank you, man. Love you too, man. Love the support. Yeah, I'm going to be talking some Mets later, actually. Going to be talking some Francisco Lindor. Going to be talking some David Stearns and the Mets offseason needs because they got a lot of needs, let's be real, especially that bullpen. But before I get into the Mets, let's talk about the Jets. They upset the Philadelphia Eagles last night. Last night, 4:25. They ended around 6:30. So, yeah, the New York Jets beat the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Actually, last week I published an article on Fansided that was 3 reasons the Jets could upset the Philadelphia Eagles, and Just saying. And this defense continues to be lights out. Let's go over the highlights.
Hurts facing a 4-man rush over the middle. It's intercepted.
There he is. Hurts.
Tony Adams.
Picked off. There's Tony Adams.
Breaking tackles.
Second year undrafted cornerback.
Those of you who are watching Arizona and the Rams on first down into the end zone,
the ball in the red zone, and he rushes it in to score. They take the lead, 18-14. They go for 2. They get the 2-point conversion, and then the Eagles have a chance at the end. 4th and 8 with a minute left. Throwing it deep, but nope. Jordan Whitehead, man with 3 interceptions against the Buffalo Bills in Week 1. Breaks it up at the end, and the New York Jets seal the deal against the Philadelphia Eagles 20-14, and they cap off their third win of the season and now sit at 500 going into the bye week with a great chance to go 4-3 coming off that bye week, going up against the New York Giants, the 1-5 New York Giants. So the Jets, they're looking up, and that's great to see. It's great to see, especially with Zach Wilson taking over Aaron Rodgers. You got to love it. You got to love it. But it's going to be fun to watch this New York Jets team going forward, especially now that the schedule is softening up. I mean, you think about it. They beat the Buffalo Bills. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and they lost by 3 points to the Kansas City Chiefs. Three of the best teams in the NFL they went toe-to-toe with, beat 2 out of 3 of them. And against those quarterbacks, against Josh Allen, they forced 3 interceptions. Against Pat Mahomes, they forced 2 interceptions. And last night against Jalen Hurts, the Jets defense was able to force 3 interceptions. So combined, 8 interceptions against MVP level quarterbacks. Let's hear what Robert Saleh had to say about that, the Jets defense going up against the best. I'm not sure if the sound played, but we'll
facing
go.
A four-man rush. Oh.
All right, for some reason that video had no sound, I guess, but basically what Saleh said is they've embarrassed Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. So you look at that, the confidence that Rob Saleh is showing, the confidence that the Jets defense is showing, even after they lost Aaron Rodgers, who was seen throwing the football yesterday on the MetLife turf that tore his Achilles. But great signs in New York because this Jets defense, now after the first 6 weeks, let's go over where they rank. The Jets defense, 15th in passing yards allowed. Could be better. 13th in points allowed. Could be better. Definitely. But, I mean, against the Philadelphia Eagles, top 5 offense in the NFL, arguably the best offense in the NFL, only letting up 14 points. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, only letting up 23 points. Against the Buffalo Bills, only letting up 16 points. This Jets team can play some football, huh? Even without the 4-time MVP, they know how to win. And when you look at their schedule, their remaining schedule, their opponents, they got the Giants up next. Then they got the Chargers week 9, the Raiders week 10. They could win that definitely. They already showed that they can beat the Buffalo Bills. They got them week 11. And then here's the test, week 12 against the Miami Dolphins. But after that, another softened schedule. Falcons week 13 at home. Week 14 at home against the Houston Texans. And then they go to Miami week 15. They got the Commanders week 16, the Browns week 17, who are no joke. They just beat the San Francisco 49ers, ended their undefeated streak. And then they got the Patriots week 18, and they better win that game based off the way that the Patriots have looked. Their only win of the season is against the New York Jets so far. Patriots suck. And the fact that we lost against them just pisses me off. And if we beat them, we'd be 4-2, and we'd have a chance to be 5-2 after we beat the Giants in week 8. But the New York Jets, they're playing great. Garrett Wilson, 8 receptions yesterday, 90 yards. And then Zach Wilson, he didn't have a great game, but no turnovers, no interceptions, no fumbles. Zach Wilson did what he had to do. He put the Jets in position to get 4 field goals. 4 field goals. And then the Jets defense did what they needed to do. And then Breece Hall got the ball in the red zone, and he did his thing. But Now that begs me to ask, can the Jets make the playoffs? Can the Jets make the playoffs? I think they can. I think they can. With this defense, this championship level defense, I mean, you look at Quincy Williams, who's second in tackles in the entire NFL right now. CJ Mosley, another great piece. Jordan Whitehead, a great piece in the secondary. And yesterday, they also picked off Jalen Hurts 3 times without the best cornerback duo in football, in my opinion, with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed both out. So missing their 2 best cornerbacks, Robert Saleh's defense still let up 14 points against arguably the best offense in football. The pass rush was insane. The forefront, they were just all over. And when the forefront is able to get to the quarterback like that, then the secondary, I mean, they're just going to eat up. They're going to eat up. Jalen Hurts was making terrible decisions, something that you never see out of him. And then Nick Sirianni being cocky, letting Breece Hall score. Well, okay. You think your offense is that good? It's not. I love to see when Nick Sirianni fails. I love it. He's the most cocky head coach in the NFL. I mean, Mike McDaniel's pretty cocky, but at least Mike McDaniel's is funny. Nick Sirianni just sucks. And it was nice to see him, his little cocky decision at the end, letting Breece Hall get in. Oh, we're going to score that touchdown. No, you're not, because this Jets defense, like Rob Saleh said, they'll embarrass quarterbacks. They embarrass Josh Allen, they embarrass Pat Mahomes, and they embarrass Jalen Hurts, forcing 8 interceptions against arguably the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. So that's that Jets defense, and that's why the Jets will make the playoffs this year. They will. They're going to be 4-3 after they beat the Giants. They might be 5-3 after that too, because who do they got again? They got the Chargers. And the Chargers 2-2 right now, second in the AFC West. They had the bye week. Last time they played 24-17, they beat the Raiders. So the Raiders suck though, anyways. Jets are making the playoffs. That's about it. But let's go over my top 5 players in New York right now. Hold on, let me get that stupid banner out of the way, and then I'll do it. All right, top 5 New York football players right now after the first 6 weeks. All right, so the only time I got to bust out my notes for this one because I'm going to be rambling off a lot of stats. Garrett Wilson, I'm going to save him for last because he's the best for last so far. Bryce Huff coming in at number 5. Bryce Huff, 9 pressures, a career high yesterday against the Philadelphia Eagles. He also had 8 pressures just 2 weeks ago against, why am I losing track of this? The Denver Broncos. So Bryce Huff is having a great season. Undrafted out of a college too. So it's great to see him and Tony Adams, 2 undrafted guys, come up big yesterday against the Philadelphia Eagles. But Bryce Huff has been coming up big all season. So that's why Bryce Huff right now is at number 5 for me. The only Giant to make the list, Bobby Okereke. He's having a great season for the Giants. And he's the only Giant on the list because the Giants are 1-5. I would love to put Saquon Barkley on this list because he had 94 rushing yards yesterday, but I couldn't because of the time he's missed. But Okereke has been the best Giants player, in my opinion, all year long. He leads the team in tackles, and that's just what he does. He was top 10 in tackles last year. So, I mean, you can't trade him. You just got him on a long-term deal. So, and the Giants have needed linebackers for the longest time. So you got to keep him, and you got to retool this roster. Joe Shane's got to make some trades, sell off some pieces, whether it's Barkley, whether it's not Barkley. Sell some pieces, acquire some draft capital, and build for the future. Toss this year out the window. But other than that, Okereke's having a great year. Number 3, Quincy Williams, second in solo tackles this year in the NFL through the first 6 weeks. He's got a total of 47 tackles, which puts him at second in the NFL. Him and his brother both had turnovers yesterday. He had the fumble recovery. Quentin, the big man, had the interception, the first interception of the game. And Quincy's just been all over the field all year long. last year in the second half of the year, he was starting to put up some numbers. And then this year, through the first 6 weeks, he's been a star. He has been an absolute star. Number 2, Breece Hall. Breece Hall found a way to get involved yesterday against the number 1 Russian defense in the NFL. He got involved out of the backfield in the passing game. Zach Wilson was able to find him. He got over 50 receiving yards, and he was able to get 39 rushing yards. So he was still able to get involved against the best Russian defense in the NFL. Had 177 yards against the Denver Broncos. Puts him at a total of over 430 yards on the year rushing. He's a beast. Coming off that torn ACL, he's looking like one of the best running backs in football. I'm going to fix my camera real quick because my dog is an idiot and knocked it over. All right, but yeah, that's that. Breece Hall, number 2 for me. And then number 1, Garrett Wilson. I mean, he's the most important player on this Jets offense. Without him, I don't know who Zach Wilson would have to throw to. I mean, Allen Lazard, yes, he's great. Mecole Hardman, he's talented, but he hasn't really even seen the field this year outside of yesterday. They're just, I mean, Tyler Conklin, he's pretty good too, but Garrett Wilson separates himself from the tight ends and the receivers on the Jets. He's the best option for Zach Wilson by far. Aaron Rodgers was uberly excited to come here and play with Garrett Wilson. Unfortunately, when he got hurt, it kind of ruined the chances of Garrett Wilson becoming a top 5 receiver. But he had over 1,100 yards with Mike White, Zach Wilson, and Joe Flacco throwing in the ball last year. And already on the year, Garrett Wilson is on pace to get over 1,000 yards. Now, is he the best receiver in football like I always said he is? No, that's me being biased, and that's me just saying it in the moment. Best receiver in football, we all know, is Tyreek Hill. You can say, and that's a debate for another day, but Tyreek Hill's on pace for over 2,000 yards. That's better than A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. So I don't want to hear it. But Garrett Wilson, he had the ability to be top 5, in my opinion, if Aaron Rodgers was healthy. But even without him, he's still putting up some pretty good numbers. And yesterday he had over 90 yards on the day. Garrett Wilson, 369 yards total on the year, two touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. So he hasn't really reached the end zone since week 2. So that's pretty upsetting. But Zach Wilson is also the quarterback. So you're going to get what you get, and you can't get upset. Garrett Wilson is going to get what he's getting, and you can't really get upset. But Zach Wilson, if he's going to explode in any game, it's going to be week 8 against the New York Giants defense that has really struggled. So hopefully Garrett Wilson can help him and rack up some big yardage and basically stat pad that game, because hopefully the Jets can win that one. But those are my top 5 players in New York football right now. Let's talk about the New York Knicks. 1-1 in preseason so far. Emmanuel quickly showed up in the first game. He really struggled in that second game. RJ Barrett, he popped out for 23 points against the Minnesota Timberwolves. RJ Barrett, he's getting to the free throw line a lot already in the first 2 games. He was 9-12 from the free throw line in the second game of the preseason. In the first game, he got there 9 times. And made 9 of those again. So RJ looking good, 23 points and then 12 points in 15 minutes in that first game. So if RJ can just get to the line and knock down his free throws, he's going to average over 20 points per game, and that's going to give the Knicks 3 guys who can score 20 points per game. Emmanuel quickly, he's the wild card, because if he can come off the bench and average 15 plus per game, then that makes the Knicks offense one of the better offenses in the league. But only 9 points, 2 of 9 from the field in game 2 of the preseason. In the opening night of in the opening preseason game, he was 8 of 14 from the field, got 21 points in 21 minutes, knocked down 2 of 5 3-pointers, 3 steals also, 3 steals in that last game too. So defensively, quickly is going to give you something on the perimeter. But offensively, he needs to be consistent. We can't see these inconsistencies like they already shown in preseason. So quickly, I mean, he's going to be a guy who wants to get paid. And if he wants to get paid, he's going to have to really assert himself as the best 6 man in the league. And that means win a 6 man of the year, not second place. And that means consistently come off the bench 25 plus minutes a night. Thibodeau needs to allow him to do that. And I think Tibbs will, because he trusts quickly now. He's entering year 4. And we need to see it from quickly. We need another scoring option off the bench. Fournier, though, coming out of nowhere, 15 points in that second game of the preseason. In the first game, he had 11 points, 6 of 10 from the field against Minnesota. So Fournier, a guy who was basically begging for playing time in the summer, saying that he wants to get traded or just wants a role on the team. Well, he's basically saying to Thibodeau with his play on the court so far that he deserves a role. And the Knicks need three-point shooting, and Fournier is a good three-point shooter. He's terrible at defense. But if he's a good option off the bench that can catch and shoot, then why not give him 10 or 15 minutes a night off the bench and catching a couple threes? But yeah, that's my thought process on Fournier getting playing time. But so far, I think RJ Barrett has impressed the most. I think Evan Fournier has impressed the second most. And Mitchell Robinson, I would say, is third. Quickly, I would want to put third, but, he's my biggest player to watch because I want to see what he does. I think Thibodeau is going to give him a lot of time this preseason because he kind of, he wants that money. So, you want that money, let's see what you're made of. But Mitchell Robinson is a guy who he blocked Karl Anthony Towns, and then 8.7 rebounds, 4 of 4 from the field. He had that block, like I said, against Karl Anthony Towns in 21 minutes, and that's usually what he plays. So 23 minutes against Boston, he had 7 rebounds, 5 of 8 from the field, 10 points. So offensively, if Mitchell Robinson can be a guy who can get 10-plus points per night, that's good. That's good. But the key question around him is, can he stay healthy? The health has always been the question mark for him. So if he can stay healthy, I think Mitchell Robinson will actually establish himself as one of the better defensive centers in the game, and maybe even one of the better offensive centers in the game, obviously outside of Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and then now maybe Chet, now maybe Victor Wembanyama. There's a lot of good scoring centers around the league. My dogs are going nuts right now. But yeah, I do think that Mitchell Robinson can become one of the best centers in the game this year defensively. We'll see though. We will see. I'm going to take a quick break now. I'm going to be talking a lot more Knicks as the season starts coming a little bit closer. I'm going to try to get a couple guests on to talk some Knicks. So keep an eye on that. And yeah, going to take a quick break. We'll get right back. We'll talk some Mets and Yankees off-season keys, and then we'll wrap it up. But yeah, enjoy this video from a while ago. And, even after Ohtani, what do you think? What do you think about Steve Cohen as a whole? Like, you think this guy, what do you think he did for this Mets franchise so far?
Yeah, I think starting with the first half of the question, Ohtani's certainly on the table. The biggest barrier in the Mets' way from them landing him isn't dollars, but it really is just preference. If Ohtani still has the same preference that he had entering the MLB, which is West Coast, then the likelihood of him landing with the Mets isn't as strong as, say, the Dodgers, who, while the Dodgers might not be able to put up the highest dollar for Ohtani the way that the Mets would, it wouldn't be shocking if Ohtani, say, took a slight pay cut from the Dodgers versus what the Mets offer would be. They weren't drastically different to stay in LA, that area, to be with the Dodgers and be on the championship winning type organization still. So that is the biggest hurdle in landing him. But rest assured, we've all known by now that when Cohen has his eyes set on someone, he's going to do everything physically and humanly possible to acquire them. And, I don't expect a Carlos Correa, broken ankle type situation 2.0 here with Ohtani. So rest assured, if the interest is there, which we all know it is, the Mets will at minimum do their due diligence and give a valiant effort in landing him. And should they not, especially, then you look at the Manny Machado. I think either way, the Mets are in a strong position to land one of the top free agents next year. It's just a matter of if it's going to be the best player in baseball, or is it going to be one of the best third basemen in the game? So, yeah, we'll discuss that more as we get closer to the trade deadline, depending on where the Angels are at and things of that nature. But, yeah, they will certainly be involved. And to answer the second part, yeah, Cohen, everything that I say, by now, right? He's just done an amazing job as Mets owner over the past couple of years. I had the privilege of meeting him a couple months ago, back in early January at a Mets event, and he was just, exactly what you would expect him to be. Just the fact that he goes so out of his way constantly to interact with fans, people, media, just really showing that the only difference between you and I and Cohen is the dollars on our net worth. Aside from that, the same interest level is there when it comes to being a diehard true Mets fan. That is what was the focal point in him buying the team in the first place. It wasn't because of this being a superior investment long term. No, it's because he wants to bring championships to Queens as a desperate fan, and I don't blame him. I would do the exact same thing if I had the money to back it and if I were in his shoes. So everything he's done from top down, not only in the organization with the amount of funding for the roster, which is right around double more that he's spent on guaranteed contracts alone since he became an owner, which is around $1.4 billion than the next closest owner in baseball over the past couple of years, which is Steinbrenner of the Yankees, around $880 million. Aside from investing a record amount of dollars over that period of time with on-field product, it's off the field. It's with the coaching staff with Showalter, Epler, the hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars that he's also spending in the analytics department, which is something that the Mets didn't even have when Cohen became owner. It's from the smallest things to the biggest things, to the medical staff. I mean, everything and everyone that is currently a part of the Mets organization is making this look night and day from what it was just a couple years ago. And it just shows you that, having a lot of money certainly helps, but knowing how to properly allocate it into every single area of need and just to give you superiority over the next club as a rival, either in the division or just going for a championship as a whole, will certainly help do wonders for a team. And that is the case with Cohen and these New York Mets. Beyond grateful to have him at.
Oh, shit. I'm back. I was going to play this little quick video real quick because we're making it more of a show style. We got the James Owen podcast. This is going to be shit. We're going to get a lot of guests back. But yeah. Welcome back to the Strictly New York City Sports Show, where I'm talking all about New York sports. We were just wrapping it up with that Knicks talk, so now we'll dive right in. You saw that video of me talking with Wardy New York Mets. Shout out Wardy New York Mets, by the way. Unfortunate, the Mets kind of sucked this year. They got a big offseason ahead, but before I do dive in to what David Stearns has to do as president of baseball operations, the first ever New York Mets president of baseball operations, we'll dive into what he has to do. Before we dive into what he has to do, let's talk about the current state of the Mets. There's question marks about Pete Alonso's future. Even still, that Stearns said he's going to be the 2024 opening day first baseman. And Scott Boras, a Steve Cohen friend, just signed as his agent with Pete Alonso. So it would make sense that Pete Alonso stays with the Mets long term, and he will. And Pete Alonso, coming off his worst ever season, hit over 40 home runs and had over 110 RBIs. And that's his worst year. Lindor, probably one of his best years, if not his best year as a New York Met. 254 batting average, 31 home runs, also had 33 stolen bases, 30-30. Shout out Lindor for that. 98 RBIs, and it came out the other day, even with an elbow spur or something like that, still played in 160 games, played in 161 in 2022. All this guy does is play baseball. That's what he does. He's very good at baseball. He's still one of the best shortstops in baseball, if not the best shortstop in baseball. I think it's Corey Seager. I think it's Lindor. And I think it's Bo Bichette. I think those three are the three best shortstops in baseball. And after what Lindor did this year, popping off over 30 home runs for the first time as a New York Met, I think he proved that contract, all that speculation about that contract a couple years ago, I think he shut the door on that. Going 30-30. 30-plus home runs this year for the first time as a New York Met. He answered those questions. He's worth it, 100%. And going forward, this Mets team, they can't rebuild, obviously. They can't just rebuild completely, but they are going to retool. And that's what they've been doing. And I think that's what they'll continue to do. But with Lindor, with Edwin Diaz, with Pete Alonso, with Kodai Senga, Brandon Nimmo, those are guys that are ready to win now. And based off that, the Mets can be a wild card team next year. So who should they go after and get? Yariel says top three shortstop in baseball. Lindor, number one. O'Neal Cruz at number 3. Ooh, okay. I feel Pete is gone. If the Mets sign Ohtani would definitely be the DH. I'll say that. And Yamamoto for 2024. Then Pete getting traded. Move won't hurt that much. Yeah, definitely won't. Definitely won't hurt that much if we get those two. But at the same time, he's a homegrown player. With the guys coming up out of the farm system soon, you want to show to them that you want to pay your guys, right? You want to pay your guys. So I think by paying Pete Alonso, giving him a long-term deal, it would kind of incentivize those guys to perform well for the Mets. And I think you can still go out there and get Ohtani and Yamamoto, but if you get Ohtani, that's the interesting part because Ohtani would DH and Alonso long-term in a couple of years, he's going to want to be a DH probably. He's not a very good defensive first baseman. Let's be real, guys. He's okay for now. But when he's going on the north side of 30, which is now, he's going to go downhill defensively. So if you do get Ohtani here, and Ohtani's a DH, then it would make sense to move on from Alonso. I don't think you got to do it right now, though. He's got another year left on his deal. Maybe trade him over there. Who knows? But if you get Ohtani, I'm okay with trading Alonso. Like I said, because of the DH situation, but I would still prefer to keep Alonso. I still think he has value. I still think he's a top 5 power hitter in baseball. And I think on a championship team, he could be the second or third best player. And maybe even, with a guy like that, you even see it with the Phillies. Home runs at any second. And Pete Alonso's a guy who can hit a home run at any second. So those are the type of guys you want in your lineup in the postseason. And if the Mets want to be a contending postseason perennial contender, I should have said perennial postseason contender, but they want to be a perennial postseason contender. Keeping Pete Alonso is the best way to go about it. But other than that, they need guys in the rotation. Yariel, you mentioned Yamamoto. Yamamoto is a guy who I think the New York Mets need to get. I think bringing him in, joining Kodai Senga top the rotation, that gives them 2 legitimate aces at the top of the rotation. One's 24 years old. The other just turned 30. I want those 2 guys as my aces. Jose Quintana, stick him at the back end. He's a 5. Now you need to plug in 3 and 4. Who is it? I don't know. Blake Snell's available. You need another lefty probably. Mets haven't had a lefty in a long, long time. But Yamamoto, I love the idea of it. I really do. So let's go get Yamamoto. I'm okay with that. I'm actually all for it. I think he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball when he does come over here. I mean, Senga, he was a top 3 pitcher in the National League this year. And Yamamoto is supposedly better. So, and he's 24. I think him being 24, that's really is what is making me want him. I'm not sure why. Yariel, why would you say that you want Yamamoto here outside of the fact that he's one of the best pitchers in Japan right now? What would you say out of that? What do you think it would do for the Mets? Because they still need more outside of Yamamoto. It would be Blake Snell as another option. Because that would only be 2 legitimate guys at the top of the rotation. You still need more outside of Yamamoto. And then offensively, I think they're pretty set. They could definitely use another power bat, whether it's Cody Bellinger or Ohtani. Who knows? But I think, we're also like McNeil had his worst season. Lindor was having a terrible year in the first half. Alonso had his worst season. Like Marte sucked. There's a lot of guys who sucked for the Mets this year. So, of course, the Mets were going to suck. I have a hard time believing that all those guys are going to suck again. So, they're definitely going to be a wild card team next year. Yeah. I mean, that would plug the 3 and 4 spot, too. I think Jordan Montgomery, he proved just the other day that, and he can pitch in New York, too. That's the other thing. That's another great thing about Montgomery. He already proved that he can pitch in New York when he was with the Yankees. So you want him here. And he can pitch in the postseason. He can pitch in the postseason now. So I'm all for bringing in Jordan Montgomery over here with the Mets. Why not? David Stearns, he's got to be good. Who's going to be the manager? I don't know. It's probably going to be Craig Counsell. Let's be real. But it's going to be interesting. But Yankees, they got to be all in on Juan Soto this year. if like the Mets, I would love for the Mets to get Juan Soto, but the Yankees need more. I think the Mets are going to look towards Ohtani. And the Yankees, honestly, Yankees should be in Ohtani, or they got to bring in Ohtani or Soto. The New York Yankees, when they go after the best free agents, they usually get them. If they go after Ohtani, they have to get him. If they go after Soto, they have to get him. They have to bring in one of those two guys. Why? Because Aaron Judge isn't getting any younger. Garrett Cole isn't getting any younger. And Garrett Cole is one of the best pitchers in the American League, and Aaron Judge is, when he's healthy, he's the best hitter in baseball. He's the best hitter in baseball when he's healthy. You bring in Ohtani to join him, that's a great lineup. That's an all-time duo. Bring in one of those guys. That's what I'm going to end today's show on, is bring in a star to wear pinstripes, because the Yankees, they used to be the organization that went out there and got the best guy. And now you can either trade for Juan Soto because he's likely going to be available. The Padres are probably going to move him in the offseason. Go get him. You got the prospects for it. Go get him. And then Ohtani, if you can't get Soto, well, then pay for Ohtani, because that's what the Yankees should do. Now, I'd love for the Mets to get one of them because I'm a Mets fan, yes. But the Yankees should definitely get one of them too. That's what I'll end today's show on. Yadier Molina as a manager. If we went to a former player, I'd rather give it to Carlos Beltran, to be honest, first. Yadier Molina will be a great manager if he does go over into the managing world, though. Catcher's one of the smartest position players in baseball. I mean, they got to know every position, basically. And then the scouting reports, too. Pitching-wise. What to throw to which hitter. How to attack certain hitters. Defensive positions. Being the captain. So, yeah, I would love Molina as a manager. But if we're going to give it to a former player, I think they'd go to Carlos Beltran over Molina. Especially because Beltran's currently with the organization as well. But it'll be interesting to see what the Mets do. I think Craig Counsell is going to be the guy. I also think that's the most boring option, too. I want some fun. I would love to see Molina or Carlos Beltran as the manager. I do think it's going to be Craig Counsell, but that's going to be boring. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'm going to be going live Friday at 6:30 for the Strictly New York City Sports Show. Going to be going live every Monday and Friday with this. And then keep an eye out for the James Nolan podcast throughout the week. Probably going to be doing a lot of more just audio podcast stuff too as well. But the show, Monday and Friday, 6:30, live, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. That's all I got, guys. Deuces.